Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Ministry of Finance is still having a hard time locating that $42 million missing from the Hurricane Relief Fund.
A Pricewell Forbes says he's honored to accept his newly appointed position as opposition business leader.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, Access Industries has appointed Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts to manage the one and only Ocean Club on Paradise Island as of November 30th, 2017. Upon this change in management, the property will be known as the Ocean Club, a Four Seasons Resort, Bahamas. Jonas Sonnenborn, who is the head of real estate for Access Industries, said, Four Seasons shares our vision for a truly personalized luxury experience. He added the Ocean Club, like Access's other iconic hotels, offers its guests an unparalleled location and boundless possibility for their experience at the resort. Following the success of our partnership in South Africa of France, Four Seasons was the natural choice to help elevate the Ocean Club to even greater renown. Meanwhile, J. Allen Smith, president and CEO of Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, said, "We are proud to work in partnership with Access to bring luxury travelers a Four Seasons experience in the Bahamas. The genuine warmth of the Bahamian people matches perfectly with the personalized service that only Four Seasons can deliver." In other news, Minister of Immigration Brent Symonette admitted today he signed boxes of Nolles prosecutes when he acted as Attorney General. His comments came as parliamentarians continue debate on a bill to create the office of an independent director of public prosecutions.
I will say that I have executed, or signed rather, I won't say thousands, but numerous Nolles.
Symonette, who acted as Attorney General on multiple occasions, told members of Parliament that there's a lot of responsibility and the job requires a lot of discretion, especially when it comes to signing a Nolle, which is a formal notice of abandonment from the prosecution of a charge. It's a hot-button issue, particularly when it comes to questioning an Attorney General's motives for signing a Nolle. Symonette explained why he signed so many.
There were a lot of cases, like 10 years ago, before I was appointed, that someone stole a candy bar from Super Value. Or someone had a joint, and a tourist had a joint in a nightclub, and that was 15 years ago. Whether that was a Nolle or whether it was not prosecuting, I signed boxes of those out of the way. Because I just couldn't see bringing someone back who was 18 at the time, who's now 28, 30, for one joint. Bring him back from Canada to the Bahamas to waste time.
Former Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald was criticized after it was revealed he signed a Nolle involving a former client while acting as the Attorney General. Former AG Alison Maynard Gibson has also come under heavy fire for a Nolle involving Sandals execs. But while he didn't specifically refer to these matters, Symonette said it's similar reasons why the government is seeking to pass this bill.
We need to find a way, and this is all I want to stand up to do today, was to take that power out to the hand. And you know, politicians don't like giving up power.
No, they don't.
Never like giving up power. To take that hands out of an elected official or an appointed official in the Senate and put them in the hands of a duly appointed civil servant. So forever and forever after, we take away the possibility, the sniff, or whatever you want to call it, of political intervention into the prosecution or lack of prosecution of any Bahamian in this country today.
North Abaco MP Darren Henfield, during his contribution, was of the same view. He said, politics aside, attorneys general from both political parties did wrong.
And so now, Mr. Speaker, despite being keenly aware of the egregious abuses of power wielded by attorneys general on both sides of the political divide and their indiscriminate use of the Nolle prosequi, the side opposite, in their typical disingenuous and hypocritical fashion, has taken the government to task over this bill.
He said it's important, whether true or not, that there should be no opportunity for the perception of corruption among public officials.
His acts may not be those motivated by corruption, but because of the cloak and dagger style of the entering of the Nolle prosequi in the current dispensation, it will always avail to comments, to assertions that the Attorney General has done something wrong. We are seeking to remove that assertion and stigma.
Meanwhile, Marathon MP Romy Ferreira said the need for the establishment of an office of an independent prosecutor hits home for him. He referenced an alleged murder plot targeting members of environmental group Save the Bays.
I endured threats of death, attempted break-ins at my home and my office, car tires slashed, harassment of my dear mother on her deathbed. Some of my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, endured much more than this. Mr. Speaker, these criminal acts were reported, but no prosecutorial action was taken. Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, to ensure my safety and that of my family, we had to reach out to an international human rights body for help.
Barrera stepped down as a Save the Base director before the general election. He said the establishment of an independent DPP is something the FNM campaigned on and one it must deliver for the people.
I have a special interest in this piece of legislation. Anything which strengthens the independence and the independence of the prosecutorial system in this country will get my support.
The son of former Prime Minister, the late Sir Lynden Pindling, is accusing Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis of playing politics. This after Minnis asserted on Monday that in the 1970s and 80s, the government of the day turned a blind eye to merchants of drugs and death. Bonnie Toot reports.
As Dame Marguerite Pindling, Governor General and widow of former Prime Minister Sir Lynden Pindling, looked on during a handing over ceremony at police headquarters on Monday, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis asserted that the great challenge of criminal violence in the Bahamas is rooted in its sad and sordid history. He described the Bahamas as a nation for sale and a narco state in the 1970s and 80s, while accusing the government of the day of turning a blind eye to merchants of drugs and death. Pindling was Prime Minister at the time. His son Obi Pindling today chalked up Minnis' statements to pure politics, asserting that while his father's character has also been attacked by members of his own party, his family has learned not to take these things on.
That's my view. Now, others may disagree with me, but of course I've heard this as part of political statements from 1983 when it first happened. And there were people in our party who also expressed the same view. Does that mean that I mustn't speak to them or no? Again, it's all, to me, it's all politics, and I just leave it at that. You know, there are things that have been going on, you know, politically for a long time, and you just understand that it's part of the ball game. I don't take it as any more or any less.
Drug smuggling was a major problem in the Bahamas during that period, prompting the government to establish a commission of inquiry on the drug trade in 1983. PLP leader Philip Brave Davis called the Prime Minister's comments outrageous and disgraceful, asserting Sir Lynden sought assistance from the United States in the fight against the illegal drug trade. His son told our news today that he lives in a free and democratic society where people can express their views, adding he refuses to get drawn into the political debate.
I just look at it as another political comment, and I make nothing of it. I have numerous friends in the governing party, and obviously our views don't line up on a number of issues, but that's fine. I respect their views, and they're free to say what they say. I'm not going to get drawn into a political debate over it.
Pindling says he has grown accustomed to attacks on his father, attacks he shrugged off as small things that are par for the course.
My father being the leader of the PLP and Prime Minister for all those years, obviously he was the object or the subject of numerous attacks, you know, based on politics. To us, it's nothing. It's like water running off a duck's back. We have friends who we've known each other since we were childhood, who got involved in politics. Their parents were godparents to some of, you know, my siblings and everything. We don't take these things personally, man. That's par for the course.
Reporting for our News, I'm Bonnie Toot.
The Minister of Finance revealing today that his ministry is still trying to trace $42 million in hurricane money borrowed under the former administration. This as he asserted that he never said the money was missing. Here's George O'Bain.
Weeks after Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest announced in the House of Assembly that $42 million was not accounted for from the Hurricane Relief Fund, today he told reporters that that money is still not accounted for. Several members of the PLP, including former State Finance Minister Michael Halkitis, have since come forward defending the party against accusations by Turnquest that the $42 million was used to try and buy the 2017 general election. The Deputy Prime Minister says they are still trying to account for how that money was spent.
So there's $42 million that we are unable to say went to hurricane-related expenses. Now, that's not to say that it didn't, because that work continues. But at this particular point, or the point that I spoke, that was the case. So nobody said that the money was taken out of the Treasury.
According to Turnquest, despite his ministry's best efforts, nothing has come up yet, but they won't give up until the money borrowed on behalf of the Bahamian people is accounted for.
All monies received by the government of the Bahamas goes into the consolidated fund. All monies, right? So in this instance, $150 million would have been borrowed on behalf of the Bahamian people for the purpose of hurricane recovery efforts. Out of that $150 million, we are able to determine that $108 million was spent on hurricane-related items by going back to the Treasury vouchers and checks and whatever else and determine that that's what it was spent for.
As for opposition claims that the finance minister's comments are irresponsible, Turnquest says it's easy for taxpayers to draw their own conclusion, given that several other cabinet ministers have been vocal about spending in their ministries as well.
You would have heard about the contracts that have been issued. You would have heard about the employees that would have been hired in this run-up to the general election. So you make your own conclusion.
Reporting for R News, I'm Georgie O'Bain.
Well, House Speaker Halston Moutry has ruled there was no breach of privilege when Turnquest asserted that the Christie administration diverted more than $40 million to buy an election win. The Christie administration borrowed $150 million for rebuilding efforts after Hurricane Matthew. Turnquest said last month the government had not been able to trace how $42 million of that money was spent. On October 18th, opposition leader Philip Davis said Turnquest was out of order and he called for the matter to be investigated by the House of Assembly's Committee on Privilege. The speaker said he carefully examined the statements from Turnquest before coming to his conclusion.
Honorable members, for a misleading of the House to be deliberate, there must be something in the nature of an incorrect statement that indicates the intention to mislead. There must be much more than just hurt feelings as a result of a statement or the anxiety of fleeing when no one chasing. It is against this background that I rule that the matter referred to me do not constitute a prima facie case for breach of privileges, and to rule otherwise would result, in my estimation, in the ancient privilege that I pledged to protect being modified or surrendered, and I do so rule.
Davis said Turnquest's claim suggests the former government is guilty of a criminal offense and was a clear attack on the integrity of Davis and Anglican MP Glenys Hannah Martin since they served in the last Christie cabinet. Well, residents of the Mud in Abaco are giving their view on the government's recently announced immigration plans. This after Prime Minister Minnis set a deadline of December 31st for illegal migrants to leave the country. Jared Higgs has that.
Any country you go by, it's the same thing, the same steps you have to follow.
This young lady, who only wished to be identified as Keisha, is a longtime resident of the Mud community in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. She says her documents are in order, and she doesn't have sympathy for her fellow residents who may not be legal.
Yeah, I grew up, everyone around here know me, I grew up with them. So majority, if they ain't straight, yeah, that's on them. Because they had a lot of time to get straight.
Claudette, Joseph, and Zadeh both migrated to the Bahamas more recently. Claudette has her papers, but her son is having challenges sorting out his citizenship. Neither seems to have an issue with the government's so-called end-of-year deadline, with Zadeh insisting that he doesn't allow persons without legal documents to sleep in his home.
You can't live in people's country in sweat. You support beach sweat. You support put you sweat. Immigration support put you sweat in Gogman. I won't know there's people, some people live there 1 year, 2 years. You can apply or not, you can apply. That's why I won't know.
That's me, my wife, live in my house. You
That's all you care about?
No. I know see the next people, you know sweat, I know live in my house. Immigration tell me, you know sweat, you come in my house, you illegal, I go to court, you charge me.
Ah.
You understand? Okay, I tell people, you know sweat, I know live in my house.
While many residents say that their paperwork is organized, some are saying that children who were born here should not be sent back to their parents' homeland, especially if they spent many years growing up in the Bahamas.
The people who been born over here, like been to 3 government schools and thing, they trying to send them back because they ain't get their passport, but at least they done been to school over here and they didn't experience their whole life over here, and you just can't send them to Haiti. And they ain't a place they ain't never been to.
And while many people we spoke to considered the government's warning to be fair, 22-year-old Jay, who didn't want his face shown on camera, says he has his doubts. Anyone who have the applications in, if you got your paperwork in and then they get you straight.
I don't believe that. The government has lied too much. They lie about everything. So I don't believe anything they say. That's why I didn't vote for them.
What you think about other people in the community? What does the community talk about it?
Same thing. Same thing. Everyone talks about the same thing.
They skeptical.
Yeah. Government scam you a lot.
Residents advise our news that we would have to go deeper into the maze-like community to find its illegal residents. With no street signs, paved roads, and poor building standards, immigration officials will certainly have their work cut out for them. Reporting for our news from Marsh Harbor, Abaco, I'm Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Still to come on our news, what Pice Will Forbes hopes to bring to his new role in the leader of opposition business. Plus, the DPM hits back at the PLP leader over storm damage costs. Stay with us.